Have you ever wondered why the strongest people are often the first to walk away? Not because they are afraid, not because they have given up, but because they have learned a lesson that most people spend a lifetime trying to understand. They know that not every fight deserves their energy, not every argument deserves their voice, and not every relationship deserves a permanent place in their life. The world will tell you that strength means standing your ground at all costs. But real strength is knowing exactly when to stop, when to turn around, and when to leave without looking back. It takes far more courage to walk away from disrespect than to remain where your spirit is slowly being drained. It takes greater confidence to choose peace over pride, purpose over proving a point, and dignity over endless conflict. The people who seem unshakable are not unbreakable because life has been kind to them. They are unbreakable because they have mastered the art of protecting what matters most: their peace, their values, and their future. They no longer chase acceptance from people determined to misunderstand them. They no longer waste precious years trying to convince others of their worth. Instead, they make one powerful decision that changes everything. They walk away from anything that asks them to become less than who they are. That choice is not an act of surrender. It is an act of wisdom. It is the quiet declaration that your life is too valuable to be spent fighting battles that steal your joy instead of building your future. Today, you are about to discover why the strongest individuals never fear walking away, how this single habit transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones, and why the greatest victories often begin with the courage to leave behind what no longer deserves your presence. Many people grow up believing that strength means holding on no matter how painful the situation becomes. They are taught that leaving is a sign of failure, that walking away means giving up, and that real courage is measured by how much suffering a person can endure. But this belief often traps people in unhealthy relationships. Endless arguments, toxic workplaces, and situations that slowly erode their confidence. Genuine strength does not come from enduring unnecessary pain. It comes from having the wisdom to recognize when something no longer serves your growth and the courage to choose a different path. Walking away is not an escape from reality. It is a conscious decision to protect your future from being shaped by circumstances that diminish your spirit. A truly strong person understands that every moment of life carries value. Time, energy, attention, and peace of mind are resources that can never be replaced once they are wasted. Instead of spending years trying to change people who refuse to change or fighting battles that have no meaningful outcome, they invest those resources in becoming a better version of themselves. They know that every unnecessary conflict steals a little more of their focus, and every toxic environment chips away at their inner peace. Walking away becomes an act of self-respect because it reflects the belief that their life has a greater purpose than endless struggle. There is also a quiet confidence behind the decision to leave. Weakness often seeks validation, approval, and the satisfaction of having the last word. Strength, however, does not need applause. A strong person does not remain in a disrespectful situation simply to prove endurance. They recognize that some people are committed to misunderstanding them, Some conflicts have no solution, and some doors are meant to remain closed. Instead of exhausting themselves trying to control what cannot be controlled, they accept reality with maturity. This acceptance is not defeat. It is freedom. Walking away also requires emotional discipline. In moments of anger, disappointment, or betrayal, the natural impulse is often to react, argue, or seek revenge. Yet, those reactions usually create deeper wounds rather than lasting solutions. Strong people understand that emotions are temporary, but the consequences of emotional decisions can last for years. They choose patience over impulse, silence over meaningless arguments, and distance over destructive confrontation. Their restraint is often mistaken for weakness by those who equate loudness with power. But true power is measured by self-control rather than emotional outbursts. One of the greatest misconceptions about strength is that it demands constant resistance. In reality, strength often reveals itself through surrender, not surrender to fear, but surrender to truth. When a dream has become destructive, when a relationship has become one-sided, or when an environment consistently damages mental and emotional well-being, refusing to let go is not courage. It is attachment disguised as determination. Strong people separate persistence from stubbornness. They know that perseverance is valuable only when it leads toward growth, purpose, and fulfillment. Holding on simply because of pride rarely produces peace. Walking away also creates space for renewal. Nature itself demonstrates this principle. Trees release their leaves before new ones can grow. Seasons change because life depends on cycles of letting go and beginning again. Human life follows the same pattern. Every ending creates room for new opportunities, healthier relationships, deeper wisdom, and unexpected blessings. A person who never leaves what is unhealthy has little room to receive what is truly meant for them. Strength lies in trusting that the unknown can offer more than the familiar pain left behind. Another reason walking away reflects strength is because it demands responsibility rather than blame. Instead of waiting for others to change, strong individuals take ownership of their own choices. They understand they cannot control another person's behavior, but they can control where they remain and what they tolerate. This mindset shifts their focus from being victims of circumstance to becoming architects of their own future. Rather than asking why someone treated them unfairly, they ask themselves why they should continue allowing that treatment to shape their lives. That single change in perspective transforms helplessness into empowerment. People who possess true inner strength also understand that respect begins with the boundaries they establish. Every time they remain in situations that repeatedly violate their values, they silently teach others that such behavior is acceptable. Walking away communicates a different message. It says that dignity is not negotiable, peace is not for sale, and self-worth is not dependent on another person's approval. This silent message often carries more influence than any argument ever could, because actions reveal convictions far more clearly than words. Many people spend a large part of their lives believing that every disagreement must be settled, every insult must be answered, and every challenge must be accepted. They convince themselves that walking away from conflict means losing, while staying and fighting proves courage. Yet the strongest people eventually discover a truth that changes everything. Protecting your peace is far more valuable than winning every battle. A battle may give you temporary satisfaction, but peace gives you clarity, strength, health, and the ability to build a meaningful life. There is no victory in proving yourself right if in the process you lose your happiness, your focus, or your sense of purpose. Inner peace is one of the most valuable possessions a person can have because it influences every decision they make. When your mind is constantly filled with anger, resentment, stress, or frustration, your judgment becomes clouded. Small problems begin to look enormous, opportunities become difficult to recognize, and relationships suffer under the weight of emotional exhaustion. Strong people understand this reality. They know that their greatest asset is not their ability to argue more effectively or to overpower others. Their greatest strength is maintaining a calm and steady mind even when life becomes difficult. Every conflict comes with a cost. Some battles demand your time. Others consume your energy, and many quietly steal your emotional well-being. The problem is that these costs are often invisible until months or years have passed. Endless arguments can rob you of sleep. Toxic relationships can weaken your confidence. Constant competition can replace joy with anxiety. The strongest people carefully evaluate whether the outcome of a conflict is worth the price they must pay. If protecting their peace requires letting someone believe they have won, they are willing to accept that outcome because they understand that real victory cannot always be measured by public opinion. Many people confuse silence with weakness. They assume that if someone chooses not to respond, it must be because they are afraid or unable to defend themselves. In reality, silence is often a sign of remarkable self-control. Strong individuals recognize that not every accusation deserves a response, and not every misunderstanding requires an explanation. They know that some people are committed to conflict, and no amount of reasoning will satisfy them. Rather than feeding endless negativity, they preserve their energy for people and situations that deserve their attention. Protecting your peace also means learning to establish healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls designed to isolate you from others. They are guidelines that protect your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. Strong people are willing to say no when necessary. They decline invitations that drain them, distance themselves from constant negativity, and refuse to participate in gossip, manipulation, or unnecessary drama. They understand that every boundary they establish is an investment in a healthier and more fulfilling future. There is also great wisdom in recognizing that being right is not always the most important goal. Many arguments continue because both sides are desperate to prove their point. Pride fuels the conversation long after understanding has disappeared. Strong people value peace over ego. They realize that the desire to always be right can become a prison, trapping them in endless cycles of conflict and resentment. Choosing peace does not mean abandoning truth. It means understanding that preserving your character is more important than winning an argument that changes nothing. Protecting your peace requires emotional maturity because it often demands restraint at the very moment your emotions encourage reaction. When someone insults you, spreads false rumors, or treats you unfairly, your first instinct may be to retaliate. Strong people pause before responding. They ask themselves whether their reaction will improve the situation or simply create another layer of conflict. This habit of thoughtful reflection allows them to make decisions based on wisdom rather than impulse, creating lives marked by stability instead of chaos. Peace is also closely connected to purpose. Every person has dreams to pursue, relationships to nurture, and goals that require consistent effort. Constant conflict distracts from these priorities. It pulls attention away from growth and places it on problems that often have little lasting importance. Strong people guard their focus because they know that every unnecessary battle steals time that could have been spent building a better future. They refuse to let temporary distractions determine the direction of their lives, choosing instead to protect the quiet strength that allows them to move forward with confidence and unwavering determination. Self-respect is not something that appears overnight, nor is it a gift that others can hand to you. It is built slowly through the choices you make every single day. One of the most powerful choices a person can make is refusing to remain where they are consistently ignored, disrespected, or undervalued. Strong people understand that their worth cannot depend on another person's opinion. They know that if they continue to stay in places where they are treated as though they do not matter, they begin sending themselves a dangerous message that they are willing to accept less than they deserved. True self-respect begins the moment you decide that your value is too great to be measured by the way others choose to treat you. Many people confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. They remain in unhealthy relationships, exhausting friendships, or discouraging environments because they believe leaving would make them selfish or disloyal. While loyalty is a beautiful quality, it should never require abandoning your own dignity. Loyalty without respect becomes imprisonment. When someone repeatedly dismisses your feelings, breaks your trust, or takes your kindness for granted, remaining there does not strengthen your character. Instead, it slowly weakens your confidence and convinces you that poor treatment is something you must simply endure. Strong people recognize the difference between standing by someone during difficult times and allowing themselves to become trapped in cycles of disrespect. Every environment influences the way you see yourself. Spend enough time around people who criticize you, belittle your dreams, or constantly remind you of your failures, and eventually those voices begin to sound like your own thoughts. This is why strong people carefully choose where they invest their presence. They understand that confidence grows in places where encouragement, honesty, and mutual respect exist. They also know that remaining in environments filled with constant negativity can slowly reshape their identity in harmful ways. Walking away is not merely about escaping discomfort. It is about protecting the image you have of yourself. There is tremendous courage in accepting that not everyone will recognize your value. Some people are too distracted by their own insecurities to appreciate your strengths. Others benefit from keeping you uncertain because your confidence threatens their control. Strong people do not waste years trying to earn approval from those who have already decided not to give it. They understand that chasing validation is an endless race with no finish line. Instead, they choose to develop a quiet confidence rooted in their own principles rather than the changing opinions of others. Self-respect also means refusing to compromise your values simply to gain acceptance. Many people silence their opinions, hide their talents, or tolerate unacceptable behavior because they fear rejection. Yet every time you betray your own beliefs to satisfy someone else, you lose a small part of your identity. Strong individuals understand that temporary acceptance is never worth permanent regret. They would rather stand alone with integrity than belong to a crowd that requires them to become someone they are not. Their confidence comes from knowing they remain true to themselves even when it is difficult. Walking away from disrespect does not require anger or revenge. In fact, it often happens quietly. There are no dramatic speeches, no endless arguments, and no desperate attempts to prove a point. There is simply a calm decision to no longer participate in situations that consistently diminish personal worth. This quiet departure reflects emotional maturity because it places energy where it belongs, on healing, growth, and new opportunities rather than endless conflict. Strong people know that protecting their dignity is far more important than winning someone's approval. The journey toward self-respect is also a journey toward freedom. The moment you stop depending on others to define your value, you become less vulnerable to criticism, rejection, and manipulation. You begin making decisions based on purpose rather than fear. You stop asking whether people will accept you and start asking whether the environment aligns with your principles. This shift changes every aspect of life, from relationships and careers to personal goals and daily habits. Instead of settling for what is merely available, you begin seeking what is genuinely healthy and meaningful. Strong people never assume that respect will simply appear because they ask for it. They understand that respect often begins with the standards they establish for themselves. By refusing to remain where kindness is absent, honesty is ignored, or dignity is repeatedly challenged, they reinforce the belief that their life has value, their voice deserves to be heard, and their presence should never come at the cost of losing themselves. One of the greatest differences between strong people and those who remain trapped in disappointment is the way they make decisions during emotional moments. Most people allow temporary feelings to determine permanent choices. Anger pushes them to say words they later regret. Fear convinces them to stay in situations that limit their growth. Pride keeps them fighting battles that have already stolen too much of their time. But truly strong people understand that emotions are powerful guides, not reliable leaders. They recognize that feelings rise and fall like waves, while the future they are building will last far longer than any emotion they experience today. That is why they consistently choose their future over temporary emotions. Every person experiences moments of heartbreak, rejection, frustration, and disappointment. These emotions are part of being human. The difference lies in how they are handled. Strong individuals acknowledge what they feel without allowing those feelings to control their actions. They understand that pain can teach valuable lessons, but pain should never become the foundation for important life decisions. Instead of reacting immediately, they give themselves time to think clearly. They realize that wisdom often arrives after emotions have settled, and decisions made with a calm mind are usually far more beneficial than those made in the heat of the moment. Choosing your future often means sacrificing immediate satisfaction. There is a natural desire to prove people wrong, seek revenge, or demand justice when someone has treated you unfairly. While these reactions may provide a brief sense of relief, they rarely create lasting peace. Strong people ask themselves a different question. Instead of wondering how they can make someone else regret their actions, they ask how they can build a future that no longer depends on that person's approval or behavior. This shift transforms pain into motivation and disappointment into determination. There is remarkable discipline in delaying emotional reactions. Modern life encourages instant responses. Messages are answered immediately, opinions are shared without reflection, and conflicts often escalate within minutes. Strong people resist this pressure. They understand that not every message deserves an immediate reply, not every criticism requires a defense, and not every emotional impulse deserves action. Their patience allows them to separate what truly matters from what is only temporarily upsetting. This ability to pause before acting protects them from countless mistakes that emotional decisions often create. Choosing your future also requires a clear vision of where you want your life to go. Without purpose, emotions become powerful distractions. A person with no direction is easily pulled into unnecessary drama because they have nothing greater demanding their attention. Strong individuals remain focused on their long-term goals. They know that every unnecessary argument, every unhealthy relationship, and every emotional distraction steals time that could have been invested in personal growth, meaningful work, or deeper relationships. Their future becomes the standard by which they evaluate today's choices. Another important aspect of this mindset is learning to forgive, not because others always deserve forgiveness, but because carrying bitterness prevents progress. Strong people understand that resentment ties them to painful experiences long after those experiences have ended. They refuse to allow yesterday's disappointments to determine tomorrow's possibilities. Forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation or restoring broken relationships. Sometimes it simply means releasing the emotional weight that keeps you from moving forward. In doing so, they reclaim the energy needed to build a better future. This perspective also encourages resilience. Every setback becomes an opportunity to learn rather than a reason to quit. Every failure becomes a lesson rather than a permanent identity. Strong people know that temporary emotions often exaggerate the size of present difficulties. What feels overwhelming today may become an important chapter of growth a few years from now. Because they understand this, they refuse to let fear or discouragement stop them from pursuing their purpose. They trust that consistency, patience, and wisdom will produce far greater rewards than emotional reactions ever could. The strongest individuals are not those who never experience powerful emotions. They are those who have learned to place those emotions in their proper position. They feel deeply, but they think carefully. They acknowledge pain, but they continue moving forward. They recognize disappointment, but they refuse to allow it to define their future. Every decision they make reflects the belief that the life waiting ahead is far more important than the emotions trying to hold them back in the present moment. Strong people understand a truth that many discover only after years of struggle. Every goodbye creates space for something better. Letting go is rarely easy because the familiar often feels safer than the unknown. Even when a situation causes pain, people tend to hold on because they fear what might happen if they leave. They worry about starting over, losing relationships, or missing opportunities. But those who possess real inner strength know that growth often begins where comfort ends. They recognize that holding on to what no longer serves them only prevents them from reaching what truly belongs in their future. Every goodbye, though painful in the moment, becomes an open door to new possibilities. Life constantly moves through seasons of change. Just as nature cannot bloom without first releasing what has completed its purpose, people cannot grow if they refuse to let go of the past. A tree does not cling to its old leaves because it trusts that new ones will come. In the same way, strong individuals trust that endings are not always losses. Sometimes they are necessary transitions that prepare the way for greater opportunities, healthier relationships, and deeper personal growth. They understand that life cannot fill hands that are already tightly holding on to what should have been released long ago. One of the greatest obstacles to embracing new beginnings is fear. Fear whispers that the future is uncertain and that staying where you are is the safer choice. Yet strong people know that certainty is not always a blessing. Remaining in a place where there is no respect, no progress, or no peace may feel predictable, but it also guarantees continued disappointment. Choosing the unknown requires courage because there are no immediate assurances. However, every meaningful achievement in life begins with a willingness to step beyond what feels comfortable. Those who refuse to leave unhealthy situations often remain trapped in cycles that never changed, while those who dare to move forward discover opportunities they could never have imagined. Goodbyes also create room for healthier relationships. When people spend years surrounded by negativity, manipulation, or constant criticism, they have little emotional space left to welcome genuine kindness and support. Strong people understand that relationships should encourage growth rather than diminish confidence. By leaving connections that repeatedly bring pain, they make room for people who respect their boundaries, celebrate their achievements, and inspire them to become better. This does not mean life will suddenly become free of challenges, but it means those challenges are shared with people who truly value their presence. Every goodbye also strengthens personal character. Letting go requires faith, patience, and resilience. It teaches you that your happiness is not dependent on one place, one opportunity, or one person. Instead, you begin to realize that your greatest strength comes from within. Every time you choose to leave something that no longer aligns with your values, you reinforce the belief that your future is worth protecting. This growing confidence allows you to face future changes with greater courage because you have already proven to yourself that you can survive difficult endings and emerge stronger than before. Another reason strong people embrace goodbyes is because they understand that success often demands sacrifice. Every meaningful goal requires giving up something that competes with it. To gain discipline, you must leave behind unhealthy habits. To achieve peace, you may need to leave constant conflict. To build fulfilling relationships, you may have to distance yourself from those who repeatedly disrespect your boundaries. Every step toward a better future involves releasing something that no longer belongs in your life. Rather than seeing these sacrifices as losses, strong people view them as investments in the person they are becoming. Looking back too often can also prevent progress. It is natural to remember the good moments that existed within painful situations, but constantly revisiting the past makes it difficult to appreciate the opportunities waiting in the present. Strong individuals honor their experiences without becoming imprisoned by them. They learn from every chapter of life, express gratitude for every lesson, and then continue moving forward with confidence. They refuse to allow regret to overshadow possibility because they know that tomorrow holds far greater potential than yesterday ever could. The most inspiring lives are often built by people who had the courage to close one chapter before they could see the next. They trusted that every ending carried the seed of a new beginning. Every farewell made room for a fresh opportunity. And every goodbye was not the conclusion of their story, but the beginning of a stronger, wiser, and more purposeful version of themselves.